And now we come to our second to last rapid fire speaker, Saharah Chapotin. She's currently the executive director at the United States Botanic Garden. I think it's a job everyone's dream job. That's what I was thinking when I heard that. She's going to talk about yield improvement, sustainability, and conservation. Thank you, Saharah Moon.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Mark, congratulations. It's been a pleasure working with you over the years. As Claudia mentioned, I'm currently at the U.S. Botanic Garden, but of course I spent 11 years at USAID before that, where I also had my dream job. So I'm fortunate to have had two dream jobs in my career. And even though I've now moved on to the Botanic Garden world, I'm here to tell you a little bit about how I feel that our Botanic Garden world actually connects back to agriculture and food security. Mark, I wanted to say a little bit about sort of our interactions and your career. Mark has really been a leader in evaluating the policy implications of new technologies in agriculture, many of which have contributed to agricultural sustainability, increased yield. And I worked most closely with Mark during his involvement in the Cereal Systems Initiative for South Asia, an effort we established at USAID with the Gates Foundation and many CGIAR centers. And he was really instrumental in establishing that original work stream on policy within the CISA project, evaluating the adoption, dissemination, and impact of resource-conserving technologies in South Asia, including improved seed varieties. And I think that effort was very important in that it embedded the improved varieties within the broader work on sustainable systems with the goal of system-wide reductions in fertilizer, energy, water use, labor, and even land use in agriculture. And of course, as populations grow and demand for food increases, there's real concern that agricultural expansion will lead to loss of natural ecosystems and loss of biodiversity, particularly in areas such as sub-Saharan Africa. And we know that agricultural extensification is one of the greater drivers of biodiversity loss. So intensifying agriculture, including much of the work that Mark has been involved with over the years, really can help to mitigate that pressure and help to conserve biodiversity. And plant biodiversity, of course, is a valuable source of germplasm for plant breeders. So this kind of comes back around. And of the many challenges facing agriculture today, biotic and abiotic stresses are paramount. And the crop wild relatives that are out there in natural ecosystems can be valuable diversity that breeders can use to introduce traits. Germplasm from crop wild relatives, however, may not always be available to plant breeders. A paper on this topic with a couple researchers from CIAT and others assessed the diversity of crop wild relatives in gene banks and found very large gaps for certain crops. They examined over 1,000 taxa of crop wild relatives, relatives of domesticated crops, and they found them to be significantly underrepresented in gene banks, which of course hampers the ability of crop breeders to access that germplasm and use it. And they concluded there was a great need to improve the conservation and availability of crop wild relatives for use in plant breeding. And in fact, 71% of the taxa they examined ranked as very high priority for further collecting from their natural habitats. And a number of important food crops were highly underrepresented by their wild relatives, including the crops that concern us and are so important to food security around the world, including maize, banana, plantain, cassava, cowpea, sorghum, millets. And so now the link back to botanic gardens, which really do lead efforts to conserve plant diversity, including crop wild relatives. Around the world, botanic gardens cultivate over 120,000 species of plants. The Botanic Garden community more recently has had a really growing awareness of how they can contribute to food security through work in better understanding, collecting, and conserving crop wild relatives. And gardens really contribute to the ex situ conservation of plants and genetic diversity and can be a valuable source of germplasm from crop breeders, and in fact, they play that role today often in the areas of fruit and tree crops. The U.S. Botanic Garden has been involved in a unique collaboration between the Botanic Garden world and the ecosystem agricultural research community that really is responding to this need. A recent award by NIFA to a collaboration of which we are part, they received a grant from NIFA to organize workshops and planning meetings around developing specific targets for plant collecting and collaborative research and public outreach in the area of crop wild relatives. The collaboration is going to deliver a how-to manual for collections, research, and outreach. It's going to develop target lists of crucial crop wild relative species that need to be collected, conserved, and shared, and it will establish a network of collaborators from both communities to advance this effort. So I really feel that we can build those stronger collaborations between botanic gardens and the ag research community. In many cases, this will be a return to an earlier vision of the role of botanic gardens. In Europe, they were often focused on the utility of plants rather than just their aesthetic or cultural value. Almost 200 years ago, George Washington himself envisioned an institution that would find novel plant materials, hold them as living collections, and share their value and importance with the public and with agriculture. That institution became the U.S. Botanic Garden, and we've recently re-embraced our role in the find, the collecting, adding to the long-standing mission we've had in holding and in sharing. Botanic gardens really are well rooted in their local communities, often in urban areas, so it provides a very valuable way for the agricultural community to connect to people, the public. And at the U.S. Botanic Garden, in the Botanic Garden community, we really welcome your thoughts, your collaboration, your ideas as how we can partner with you to better advance food security. Thank you.
Yeah, good to know that the botanical gardens are part of the solution. No, I think it's very important.